Breaking the cycle to step forward. Authentic conversations from lived experience and a professional perspective in overcoming abuse with Chris and Beverley Ann.
Hi everyone, and welcome to Breaking the Cycle to Step Forward podcast with myself, Chris and my lovely co-host.
Hello, it's Beverley Ann.
So today we've got a rather special guest who I've been working with myself over the last few months. It's Josh Westover, who is a documentary filmmaker and storyteller. Hi, Josh, welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me.
How you doing? You're most welcome.
Yeah, I'm good, thanks.
You're good. Okay. So, standard question for all of our guests. Can you just introduce yourself to our listeners, our watchers, and just give us a little bit of information around your childhood?
Yeah, okay. So, hi everyone. So, I'm a neurodiverse filmmaker. I've got Tourette syndrome and ADHD. I don't have vocal tics and I don't swear. So we haven't got to worry about that through the podcast. Might be confusing anyone. And yeah, I'm in the world of documentaries and television. I spent a little bit of time working in TV, and the last year it's been very difficult for a lot of creative people in that industry. In general, I think all creative industries are really difficult, but especially at the moment. So I've taken to TikTok and created my own YouTube channel, and now I'm telling people stories and making my own documentaries and building my own platform for myself and for people. In terms of my childhood, if I just sort of, is there anything particular? Is there any way you want to start?
Well, did you have a good childhood? Were you fully supported by your parents, caregivers? Just give us a little bit of background, because Josh, where we usually come from is that all of our guests usually have some kind of trauma in their background. So even talking about your neurodivergence and how that's impacted you as a child.
Yeah. So I had, I can't say I had a bad childhood. I would say I had a wonderful childhood because of the support that my parents gave me. They were absolutely incredible. At school, I did have a lot of issues, I would say severe issues. Mm-hmm. I got diagnosed when I was 7 years of age with ADHD and Tourette's. I think it first started out, I had a hop and a skip. My mum was, I think I did actually make a noise when I was younger, so I did have slightly vocal Tourette's. My mum was obviously like, that's not normal, I need to get it sorted out. Took me to the doctors, and it took a while for me to get a diagnosis. And I remember when I was sort of between 7 and 10 years of age, I can't remember which exact year, but I was sat around all these sort of therapists and doctors, and yeah, I finally got diagnosed with ADHD and Tourette's. I didn't really know what it was. I just knew that, I guess I didn't know how my brain worked different to other people, but I knew that, because I could see, and I knew that I ticked and did physical movements. I knew that wasn't normal behavior. So I knew, okay, well, that's what it is. I've got Tourette's, I've got a disability. That's okay. I'd run around the playground telling people I've got Tourette's and ADHD and anxiety. Didn't have a clue what it was, but anxiety was something that caused me so much. It caused me a lot of stress when I was a kid. I remember it worst in year 5 and 6. And it was really difficult for me to go to school because I also had severe allergies, and they never knew what my allergies were. I had a biopsy. They were like, is it, celiac? Are you? They just didn't have a clue. And I was really, really worried about getting these really bad belly aches at school. I'd either have to go to the toilet, maybe I'll be sick. And that was quite an embarrassing thing, especially when I was young. And it was really painful. I wouldn't be on the toilet for 5 minutes. I'd be on there for half an hour, just in pain,
Yeah.
And that, along with my Tourette's, and I guess, I'm not sure if ADHD causes anxiety, but it was all very enhanced. And only in my adult life, I'm still trying to pinpoint, what's my ADHD, what's my Tourette's? And I can go into that after because it's quite interesting. But it caused me a lot of issues at school because I just didn't want to go. I did not want to go. Put that along with walking into a classroom and twitching and ticking, it might have been a head tick, it might have been eyes. And it's weird. It was difficult because a lot of the time I wouldn't tick, so people wouldn't understand as much because it wasn't constantly obvious. It's almost like people thought, "Oh, why is he doing that?" or "Why is Josh putting that on?" And the teachers, I had teachers. I remember the head of the school was like, said to my mum, she was like, "No, Josh hasn't got Tourette's. No, absolutely not. I can tell you, he just needs this, and that." And actually, it was a load of, it was so wrong. And my mum was quite because my mum was like, look, all due respect, like, he's my son. I know my son.
Yeah.
And he's actually had a diagnosis. And she was still like, well, I'm not too sure actually if he's got ADHD and Tourette's, because I wasn't swearing, and people knew Tourette's back then as swearing, shouting, you know, it's got to be obvious. And yeah, it was difficult. It came to the point where I was so nervous to go to school, and my mum was receiving letters from, I think, you know, the education committee board, thanks, yeah. And they would say, like, you know, your son needs to be in school. And my mum was like, I don't know what to do. It's really difficult, because I was like, I would put up a fight. Like, I would probably, I'd probably swear and shout and moan. And I was terrified of going to school. I didn't want to do this, you know, because outside of school, I had a really happy childhood, like with my dad, my mum, my cousins, my cousin Harvey, who I grew up with. And, you know, I had a really lovely, like, I was a very happy, smiley young lad, you know, and I was always, for a young lad that was going through not so much, but a difficult time. Yeah, I guess I think I handled it really well. I was very, like, I had a very positive outlook on life from a very young age. Even if I wouldn't say I got bullied at sort of primary school, but if children laughed, or I sort of didn't really mind. I was like, I understand they don't understand. Like, that's okay. I had a very mature mindset. But my parents were amazing. They used to sit outside in the car park, and my dad sold cars. My mum did a lot of teaching and nursery work, and they used to take turns when they were working from home, and they would sit outside in the car park, and I just felt really comfortable knowing that they were there.
Wow, that's brilliant that you had that support.
Really lucky.
Very lucky, because also the trauma of attending school is huge, and people often dismiss that or overlook it, and it's not through necessarily ignorance in a negative way. It is the lack of awareness and the impact that has. And, you know, hearing your story, and thank you very much for having the courage to share it, but, you know, imagine being that young boy, you know, and being in that fight or flight state every single morning, 5 days a week. It has a huge impact. You know, as an adult, I wouldn't want to be walking into an environment that I didn't want to go into, you know, and being made to by different societies. And this isn't finger pointing, but, you know, as the school governors, etc., and the teachers all saying you must turn up, in the different boards, etc. It's very, very challenging. So thank you, because I'm sure there's many people listening right now thinking, oh, wow, I can identify with that as a parent, but also as a young person. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you.
So I think as well, so even though you hadn't gone through any kind of abuse within the family home, which is what we usually talk about, you had a loving, supporting family. But Josh, if you hadn't, it would have just been tenfold even worse, because you wouldn't have had that love, nurture, care, support. And we know for a fact that there are many victims and survivors of childhood abuse who also have neurodivergence like yourself. And so their trauma is totally exacerbated because of everything that they're dealing with. So your story truly has relevance to what we usually talk about.
I actually, absolutely, and actually, Chris and Bev, I noticed when I was younger, I was talking about this to a friend not long ago. I noticed when I was in primary school and early secondary school, I noticed other children who were neurodiverse, had learning difficulties, and I saw that I knew them. You know, you sort of become friends or acquaintances, or you're talking the playground. And even at that age, I could see that they didn't have, and that's probably why I was so grateful, because I had my parents being so supportive and the family around me and friends. But I saw these children go through the care system. I saw them go through absolutely horrific times. And unfortunately, a few of them people, it's quite emotional for me actually, think about it, are not here.
Yeah, very, very sad. Yeah.
Really, really sad actually.
Bev, did you want to talk about what you've just been recently diagnosed with?
Well, ironically, so Josh, obviously I'm a little bit more mature than you. So I'm in
wouldn't have guessed.
So I was 60 last year, and I'm doing a degree, and it's, you know, I've been doing lots of study throughout my adulthood, and I couldn't stay on for A-levels and university when I was younger. I am a care leaver, and I had to leave school so that I could provide a roof over my head from the age of 16. But the one message I've had following me all the time is Beverley could try harder. And yet, when I commit myself to doing my studies, I give it 150%. And last year I was actually diagnosed as dyslexic. And it was like hugely emotional, but the light bulb that goes on. And I did take a little bit of a dive in confidence, thinking this is why it's so overwhelming. But then I also was able to take a big breath and think, well, hold on now. Now you understand it. Now you can get support. And I'm about to get support in about 2 months' time. So even though I haven't got that yet, I now have a reason, and I've been changing different ways. But trying to fit into the box has always been my issue. Leave me in my own creative thinking, creative writing, fantastic. But try and put me in an academic form or box, then I just completely... So I absolutely resonate with you, because this thing, everybody's unique and individual, and in the way, and when we get a neurodiverse assessment, diagnosis, doesn't mean to say that there's anything wrong. It's just we think in a different way.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, Josh, how did you get into film making, documentaries and all of that? Was that because you wanted a creative outlet like Bev just described, because of the academia was too difficult, or?
Yeah, so, so when I, not to go into too much detail, but I finished, I didn't really do very well at school because I didn't really attend school a lot, and secondary school I'd go in part-time. People thought I was a bit of a naughty lad, but actually I was just terrified of going in. And you know, I think I did a few GCSEs. I think I ended up running away with one of the papers, the exam papers, to be fair, because this teacher didn't understand me. He was being quite rude to me. He didn't know how to work with, you know, neurodiverse children. And went to college. I made up for, you know, because I was like, I'm not stupid. I want to learn. I want to educate myself. So I did my GCSEs at college, did A-level. And I remember they were saying, like, you know, A-level business studies, it's going to be difficult. You know, you haven't got this, you haven't got that, you haven't done this. And I was like, okay, fine. 3 years later, I was getting distinctions. I was doing really well, and I proved myself. And that when I came to the age of like 17, 18, that's when I sort of really like came into my own and sort of matured quite a lot. The first time I picked up a camera was when I was about 16 years of age, just before I went in that sort of process at college. Well, going from school to college, I was doing some work with YMCA because it was suggested, I can't remember who suggested, but it was suggested that I go along and do a sports course, and this will be good for Josh. It will just be, and it was, to be fair, it was good. Whoever suggested that, thank you, it was good. And then I ended up going to Africa on a trip. It was a really amazing opportunity. I think I was 17 at the time. I was absolutely terrified. I was a bit of mummy and daddy's boy. I was like, you know, not just because I was like, I'm so used to them being around if I'm having a problem. Or
they're your safe space, aren't they?
Absolutely, my safe space. So I went to the Gambia, and I ended up, I think I spent 24 hours with a guy called David and his family. And the YMCA manager said, Josh, here's a camera. We think you'd be really good at filming. I was like, okay, all right. You know, I've always been very creative. I've always been very artistic and like drawing and painting, all that sort of stuff. So, in fact, when I was younger, I used to spend a lot of my time making my own comic books and animation characters. I'm not the best drawer, but in my head, they look better than they did on paper. I went to Africa and the Gambia, and I did some filming for 24 hours, and I really enjoyed it, but I didn't really think much of it until I came back. And then in my mid-20s, I was talking to my mum about it, and I was like, I'd really like to work in TV. And my mum was like, do you know what? I've just seen a film school open in Brighton, and I applied. And I think when I was just mid-20s, I was 26 and a half, I think, and I was there studying on my first day, and I really enjoyed it. So I did a very late degree. And to all them people out there that think, oh, it's too late to start a degree, because my mum started not too long ago, it's never too late. You know,
Never.
like, don't think you got a clock. Like, don't look at life as like you got a clock on in your head. You know, you haven't. You can do what you want, whatever age you are. And my dad's 89. And he only quit work because he didn't really have a job. You know, sort of the COVID hit, and his colleagues were like, "It'd be best for you, John." You know, he's like, "No, I want to stay," but he still tries to sell your car and gets in trouble for it. I'm sure I see the odd car parked in the house. I'm like, is that one of my dad's? Is he not? Is he keeping this a secret? What's going on? Dodgy car dealer, don't buy a car from him. No, I'm joking. He's actually a really nice guy. He's a very, very good salesman. But yeah, I did my film degree, and that's how I got into storytelling. And I've always really liked people, and like I love helping people. I'm a people pleaser. I'm a people's person, and I think that shines through with my film work. So in my second and third year, I think I started making my own short films with one of my really close friends, Theo, and who's also a writer, and he's really creative too. He's a fantastic writer. And basically, we started making like mental health videos that are going to have an impact and try and help people. And I love emotionally connecting with people visually via all my work. So that's where like my storytelling journey began, I guess.
And it makes such an impact. You know, thank you for sharing that, because when people are able to connect and understand who you are, you know, that's an important part of communication. Then when they watch your videos, and we will be adding your links for anybody listening or watching so that they can go and see them, especially around mental health. It's the basis of building a trust, isn't it? And it's like, okay, if I've got a little bit of trust here, I feel a little bit safer. I can take this in. There's somebody here that understands a little bit of what I'm going through. We all have our own story, but it's nice to know that, oh, this isn't just someone who is silent, who's not interacting. This is somebody who does care.
Sure. Thank you.
So you filmed a man called Peter. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that? How you got in touch with Peter, a bit about Peter's story, because obviously there's an overlap with Beverley's story and Peter's story.
Yeah, so obviously I think it's the eighth story. I've told 8 or 9 stories now, 8 stories on my YouTube channel. And Peter's was unique because it was a story that I didn't expect I'd hear. And it wasn't sort of like a general disability or like mental health or anxiety. It was something quite, I say it's unique, but it's actually happening a lot and happens to a lot of people, you know, which is actually really awful and worrying to think like that, because, you know, you hear these stories and Peter says that you won't hear one like it, it's one of a kind. And I understand what he's saying, but also there are so many people out there that have gone through similar. And so Peter basically contacted me and reached out on TikTok. And he was like, look, I want to make a documentary called Walking for a Smile. And he had like a vision in his own, you know, his own head of how he wanted it to look, what he wanted from it. So after a few meetings and a few chats with Peter, I was like, hey, yeah, let's go. Come down, see me in Sussex. I like just getting things done. So I was like, let's go next week, come down. Let's not overthink it. Let's just crack on and start filming. So yeah, we made a documentary called Walking for a Smile, and soon we are going to do a walk with Peter, because it didn't. The only thing will change would probably be the title, Walking for a Smile. He was going to do a big walk. He was going to walk from London to Brighton, but he hurt his hip.
Yeah.
I can't speak now. His hip. He hurt his hip. He hurt his.
It's all right. We always stumble over our words.
Yeah, it shows I'm human, right? He
Exactly.
hurt his hip in the gym, so we couldn't do it in the end. But we're definitely going to get around this summer to do a big walk for him, to raise some money for him to get a smile, because he's never really had a smile. You know, he talks about something that always sits with me is something he said, which was he went to school to be loved, but most children went to school to learn.
Yeah.
That really.
Are you able and willing to share any of Peter's story, or do you want people to go and discover it for themselves?
I like. Although I've helped Peter make a documentary, I don't want to give too much information because I want him to tell it how he wants to tell it. But you know, it's a really emotional story.
Fair enough.
Oh, can you hear me still? All right, you got me. Yeah. It's
Yeah, can hear you. Yeah.
again, sorry, you're
Yeah.
lagging a little bit. I wasn't sure if it was me as well. It's a very emotional story. It's really powerful. I wish I could give him a bigger platform because he really deserves it. But we're going to keep pushing it out for him because the more people that see it, the more
Yeah.
people, it's a chain reaction. The more people it will help. I've had messages saying, Josh, that really helped me. A lot of people have
Yeah.
said to Peter, like, you're a brave man. Like, you've given me motivation, you've given me drive, you've given me passion. You know, you've changed my way of thinking. You know, you don't realize how lucky you are sometimes until you listen to other people's stories.
And
Yeah.
it gives people hope.
It does.
Yeah. But Bev, I came across Peter's story because obviously I always am looking and searching and listening to any stories around people that have been abused and anyone that's been in a care home, anyone that's been let down, who's been failed. And it's only when I watched that I saw Josh, and that's when I got in touch with Josh to help me with the film that I did with him. Hence the one that I've shared everywhere with important people. So there's always, you know, someone searching for something, and there's always someone that will connect with you because of the work that you've done. So yeah, it is well worth watching Peter's story. But the connection that I was trying to get across to Beverley is that you both came from the care system, Bev.
Yes, and I don't know Peter's story. You know,
No.
I can only say, you know, I came from the care system. I now work in the care system. That's something I've always wanted to do, and I started that at the beginning of 2024 last year with teenagers, young people, because it's one of the most challenging areas and one of the areas that people want to shy away from. But for me, it was the best choice made on my behalf being in care because of the chaos happening at home. That's not to say I didn't get returned home, but that doesn't mean to say even though it was best, it didn't come with its challenges. But I am grateful that I was given that safe space. So, which is a unique perspective because it's not for everyone.
No, and as we know, many people are further abused within the care system. So as we've shared when we've talked about the care system, Bev, in previous podcasts, we always talk about the good and the bad and the ugly, don't we?
Yeah. So, Josh, I mean, there's so much we want to ask, and I can feel everything coming in my brain. And now I've got to channel it so that I'm asking consistent questions because I just want to go all over the place. So, Josh, when you think about now what you're doing and you're really following what you feel is your purpose, I'm going to ask you a question. In your vision, and we're not holding you to this, but in your vision that's deep down, and this is a question from the heart, if we could wave a magic wand, where would you truly like to be with your filmmaking? What would be your biggest desire?
I love telling stories and making documentaries. I also love interviewing people and being on camera, like presenting, for example. So I would love to, almost like what Louis Theroux does in traveling, interviewing people whilst raising awareness of important subjects. But I've got a really good, so I'm trying to build a platform on YouTube, and you know, people watch YouTube more than they do television nowadays. TV is just, I mean, I was watching BBC News the other day on TikTok live for like 10 minutes. I was like, until I realized, I was like, oh my God, it is actually live. Like, it's not recording. Like, you know, it's a new way of watching content. And I'm trying to build a YouTube channel that's almost like for the people, of course, for myself as well. You know, of course, it's for me because I enjoy it. I wouldn't do it otherwise. You know, I do enjoy it, but it's really rewarding when you're helping people and doing that kind of work. You ask anyone that's in a job where they're helping people, it's like half payment. You know, it's an enjoyable thing to do. But I would like to have a channel where people know who I am and what I do. So, for example, if it's a documentary on diabetes that they're watching my channel, they'll know that, for example, that documentary, let's say, obviously this is in the future when hopefully it's a really big channel and it's generating money. They'll know that, let's say, 20% of that documentary is going to go to the diabetes charity. If it's cerebral palsy documentary, 20% will be going to that charity. So it's a way of so it's a really good way of helping people, funding like charities. It may not be a lot, but it's all helpful, and individuals. And obviously I can build a career out of it myself. But treat myself to the odd chocolate bar, you know. I do like a Kit Kat. Caffeine's not good for my ADHD, but I am partial to sneaking downstairs and going and getting a Kit Kat.
But that's amazing, and thank you for sharing that, because you're already starting to create that vision, and you have a vision in mind, or it's in there inside of you, and you're working towards it, and it lets other people know who are listening, this is where Josh wants to go. And I'm a huge believer, once we have an idea of a vision, we may not know how we're going to get there, but by sharing it, it enables others to check in and think, oh, hold on, I've heard about this, Josh. Let's go and explore more. So
that's the plan. Yeah. I really do. It's so, you know, I've always been a bit of a one-man army, but just because I haven't had the funds in the last 6 years, I haven't had the funds to go and pay a camera operator or an editor. It's just not really been possible. So I've just self-taught how to edit, how to camera operate, how to do the lighting, the sound. Obviously, film school really helped, but you know, I'm a bit of a one-man army at the moment, and I'm sure that'll change in the future, and I'll work with budgets, and obviously I'm always trying to pitch documentaries and to get work in as well. But you know, I'm excited for the journey ahead, and it is interesting to see where things are going to go. But it is hard work. I can't deny it. It's really, and it is stressful. It's stressful. It's really difficult. It's hard work. It's so competitive. I mean, I'm still trying to get work in, you know, so I can build this up on the side, because I can't do this full time. It's just not possible. I need to pay bills and things, you know. It's really hard. So, you know, but again, it's difficult. There's so many people applying. A few jobs that I've applied for, videographer, storyteller, they're up to like 2,000 people applying for these jobs. It is so difficult. So it's almost repelled me to go, do you know what? I can't be bothered. I'm going to keep going on my own. And I'm just ticking on. I'm taking every day as it comes. I've got opportunities that come in here and there, and I try and lap them up when they come my way.
Absolutely. And something that comes to mind that you've been talking about there, Josh, is about the stress of doing it. Now, stress has an impact on our minds anyway, neurologically, and being neurodivergent as well, it's another level. So how do you balance that stress and look after yourself? Or in my words, I'd say your self-care. What's important to you to enable that to happen?
I probably don't give myself enough respect or like love self-care sometimes, to be fair. I don't need to get better at that. I'm always very like, no, I need to be doing, I need to achieve this, I need to be doing that. I've got to get, you know, this working. I've got to try and get this in. But I guess I play a lot of football, and that does really help me exercise. I also go to the gym once every 6 months. But do you know what? If once every 6 months, I can still get involved in them gym conversations, and I can say, yeah, I bench a bit of this, bench a bit of that. I mean, I sit on the bench more than I do bench, but you know what?
But you've made the step to get there.
I'm still a gym goer. People can't take that away from me, you know.
Oh, yes, they can. I'm going to challenge you on that. So, but footy you do a couple of times a week, don't you?
Football?
Yeah.
Yeah, I play football like sort of 2, 3, sometimes 4 times a week, which I absolutely love football.
So do you want to share who you play for? Do you play for a team, Josh?
Yeah, I play for a team called the Lecton, and we are unbeaten this season. Fantastic. Possibly one of South England's best Saturday leagues, non-league football teams, you know. That's probably pushing it, to be fair. But no, look, it's a really well-run club. Everyone's really nice. And do you know what's, you know, I've had last year was probably the worst year of my life for various reasons, and I had a really difficult time, and the club were really supportive. It could be little things like, Josh, you know, even now I'm getting a bit better at the moment, but it's like, Josh, you know, we've got a game this Saturday. Are you playing? Are you not playing? And I'm like, because my anxiety subconsciously is telling me like, you want to play, but or I don't know if you know what, you're not in the right headspace, or what if you're not in the mood, or which is actually I'm always in the mood to play football. So I've started just to say yes a little bit more, because I know that it's going to just get me along. And I've been playing a lot of football lately, and my mental health's getting a bit better. And I mean, it's never been like awful, but it's just been a very stressful year for me, shall we say. We all
absolutely.
I lost a lot, and my partner's health wasn't great, and I was mistreated by people, and it's life is difficult, but you got to just fight against it, be grateful for what you got, and just keep on going. And just to go back to my football team, they have been so fantastic to me, and really patient and respectful of like my stress levels and just like what I've been through. So it's lovely having that support with a great bunch of lads.
And that's the message that I hear coming through from when you're a little boy, having how important that support is, and having the support. So initially having it from your parents, but then finding that support yourself. And this is something that I recommend with so many people, finding and understanding what support is around. Because often when we're in our lowest places, we can isolate, and we don't know, we've said this before, often we can find ways to get through things, but it's finding that courage to be vulnerable and ask for support. And sometimes we don't know where to ask for it. We know what we want, but we don't know how to access it. So Josh, that is a great message to anyone listening. And I am going to say, particularly because you're a young man, and that's important because, as you said, you mentioned quickly that sadly you've lost, some friends along the way. And that is very prevalent in young people, and it's an increasing number at the moment, and it is particularly males as well. It's not saying it's not girls, I'm not saying that at all, but men traditionally, I know older men traditionally find it hard to speak about these things. So I'm going to say thank you once again, because it is amazing. Thank you for sharing that, because it's important, and you're highlighting to someone else, oh yeah, actually there is some support out there, and I'm going to create that support for myself and balance some of the stress.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, people do care. And like, one of the lads, a guy called Glenn, my football team, came up to me and was just like, he made a big effort of just making sure I was okay. And he was just like, just go for a beer soon, or I go for a chat. Just that little gesture can mean so much to people. So, and I don't think people would have, I put a brave face on people would have never known what I was probably going through or how stressed I was. Because I arrive, I'm like, all right, lads, hey, how are we all doing? Yes, boys, let's go. Football. But actually in my head, I'm just like, I'm probably like really pissed off, or I'm just probably not that happy. I've got a lot, but I just I'm good at pushing things to the side, and I think a lot of people are like that, male and female, everyone, anyone and everyone. And I think people do care. People do care. It's so important to talk. It's so easy to say the words, just talk to someone, but that can be the hardest. That can be the hardest. That can be the difference between life and death. Sometimes it really can be.
Absolutely. Chris, you've got your hand up patiently, waiting to come in.
Yeah, I was just going to ask Josh, how does your ADHD show up for you in your adult life? And you've shared a little bit how it shows up in football. You're showing one part of yourself, and you're feeling completely different. Would you say that is sort of a consistent thing with your ADHD or not?
Yeah, I guess so. I think, I'm not sure. I'm still trying to learn I'm still trying to learn a bit more about myself and ADHD, because it was only a couple of years ago I realised. Although my mum sort of always told me, you don't want to listen to your parents, I never really sort of knew what. I thought a lot of my ADHD issues were part of my Tourette's, and it's not. I was basically wrong. So yeah, I think I'm good at sort of putting things to the side, and I do struggle with sort of like things. I don't like things that are negative or sad, which is strange, because I'm great at listening to people and telling their stories, but like that's different. Like I enjoy helping people and telling their stories and doing that. But when it's with myself or like with a loved one, I find it quite difficult or quite stressful. Like, I'm not great with my emotions or feelings, but like I say that, I had a few cries last year, and it was really helpful. And it's I'm sure I have more throughout my life, because that's how human beings are made to release stress, and tension. Yeah. But I don't like to, like, if I'm going through a hard time, I don't really like people. So I rather just go, no, I'd rather just go, no, it's fine, that's fine, I'll sort it out. Like, it's fine, I'm fine, mate. That all good, And I think that comes from a place of like where I just want to like fight it and get through it. And I know I will. Like, I think I've got a very strong mind. Mm-hmm. Obviously, we all hit a breaking point, and last year I definitely like hit a point where I was like, I'm just so upset. I'm just angry at the world. I'm angry at this. I'm angry at that. I'm just not happy. I'm pissed off. But yeah, I think my ADHD does come into play with a lot of. I don't think people always understand it as well, because ADHD is not always obvious, and for example, I struggle to, if we're doing a warm-up and we're stretching, I struggle to stay still and stretch, because I find it almost like stressful. Like, I want to just run, I want to go and kick a foot. I'm like a moth to flame. I'm gone.
You're a Duracell bunny.
I actually am a Duracell bunny. I am a very sweet Duracell bunny.
Is he too young for that, Bev? We know what I mean by that.
No, I know. I've seen the adverts.
And it's also, ADHD. I've got a son who's 34, and when he was at school, there's talks of ADHD, and he had a friend with a diagnosis. And there was a lot of secrecy around it. It wasn't spoken about so much, and he's only 34. So I think these conversations are great for people to understand that, these diagnoses are very important, but they're not there to also define it. They're there to enable awareness, and then find what support is needed to enable you to, most neurodiverse, and someone's probably going to argue against this, but I believe that most neurodiverse diagnosis actually is a sign that the brain is working much, much quicker than the average person, but it's just unable to come out verbally necessarily, or in communication. But I know, I've grown up believing that I'm not as good as somebody else, especially in my writing, and I hide away from my writing. Over the years, I've used tools, and I will write, whereas actually it's not because I'm stupid, it's not because I don't try hard enough, it's because I can only write in my way, not in somebody else's, and I'm learning that. And I think that's important for people to really, really hear that. Like for you, yes, you didn't go to school. No, you didn't have those exams that is required of everyone, especially maths and English, for instance. But look what you're doing.
Yeah, no, you're right. I think that's so. I think we're so. It's so embedded in us, like, and society tells us, like, you got to be able to do this, write this, and you go through school, and it's like, this is what you should do, this is what you should know, and this. I still get things. I still get words wrong. I pronounce words wrong. I'm not dyslexic, but I pronounce words wrong, and I've been doing it for like 10, 15 years. My friends will be like, hey, Josh, say that again. I'm like, I say it, and I go, no, Josh, that's not how you. I think it was a silent letter the other day. I can't remember what it was now. I said a word, and they were like, oh my god. I've been calling. I think it was a geographical place in the UK, and I've been calling it totally wrong. And in my head, I just didn't know. And that's not because I didn't go to school. That's just, I don't really know what that is. I'm not saying it's part of my ADHD, but I'm getting okay with, like, I am me. I make mistakes.
Yeah.
Like, I forget things all the time. I do this, I do that. I don't always know what's my ADHD and what's my ADHD, but it's who I am. I don't want my ADHD to be gone, because I quite enjoy being a bit energetic. I love running around the field, counting the clouds. I like being me, and I find things to help me, to calm me down. I've taken up painting a little bit. I'm not very good. Well, I thought I was really good, but I painted a whale and some starfish, and I genuinely thought to myself, I've got to start a new TikTok account. This is absolutely incredible. This is a proper whale, right? I even used a cotton bud to do the bubbles. It looked.
Wow!
No artist has done this before. I am so unique, and I gave it to my mum, and she was like, "Oh, it's lovely, very, very, very nice." But I didn't see it up in the hallway anywhere, the Hall of Fame.
But art is subjective anyway. It's how you see it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And everyone sees it differently. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. I see all the colours, and I see this life. Like I see, like I only got to close my eyes, and I don't know if this is a neurodiverse thing at all. Again, I do not know, but I've only got to close my eyes, and I can just create my whole world. I can see things. I can see colours, people. I can create animations. Like I can just. I feel like I've got such. I mean, I remember dreams that are from like weeks ago. I write them down in stories. So, I write a few feature films as like a bit of a hobby as well. I'm writing an animation film and a film called The Channel. So yeah, I try and keep creative. I think my creative work really helps. It really focuses me.
Yes.
Just adding into this, both of my children, 27 and 22, have just been diagnosed with ADHD literally in the last couple of months. And my daughter's very, very creative. She's on the animation course, Josh, that I told you about. I wouldn't say that my son's very creative, but both of them, they've not been held back by it. Their life's been affected. The way that they cope with different things, they are impacted and affected. But I think once you've got your diagnosis, it's not about limiting what you can do. It's about opening up the world that you are tuned into and how you want to show up, and supporting them in that.
Yeah.
And not to limit you with these diagnoses. So just because you didn't do well at school, nor did I, but that doesn't stop you from achieving. Bev's gone back to uni. I've written books, which I never thought, people, when they hear me speak, she's from a council estate, she's from South London, she's not this, she's not that. But I'm like, I'm a very good speller. Everybody comes to me for spelling. And also, Josh, working with me, you know that I'm very particular with stuff, yeah. But that's just me, and I apologise to you on a number of occasions, saying I'm really sorry, but this is just the way that I am. And I think we've got to do more of that. We've just got to, communicate that this isn't you, this is a me thing, but just be ourselves.
Yeah, exactly. I totally agree. That's okay. And when you explained to me, because I may not have understood if you didn't explain to me. When you said I got it so quickly, I was like, I get it. I totally understand. Just to go back, if you don't mind, just when I think you mentioned what was it you said? I think maybe to do with being told that you won't do this or can't do that.
Yeah.
When I was at school, I feel like a lot of my drive comes from so many teachers. I think they thought, oh, it's just Josh the boy with Tourette's. A teacher at school would either say I'm the nicest kid in the school or a naughty boy.
Yeah.
And I wasn't. It was just, if they spoke to me, I didn't like it, how they spoke to me, or if I thought they were being rude or unfair, then I would probably be a bit rude back to them or unfair back to them. Like, fine.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that's right of me necessarily. I've always just believed, no matter who you are, how old you are, everyone needs to treat each other with respect. That's what you do.
Yeah.
And I think, I think a lot of my drive comes from like that childhood at school, not really achieving a lot at school and not doing what I wanted to do and having that judgment. I used to get told off. I remember the head teacher came in on my maths class one year, and I think it was in year 10, and I was at the front of the class. Everyone had to stand up. We were all misbehaving, and I'm sure I probably was very much misbehaving too. But I wasn't like a really bad lad. I'll be a bit cheeky sometimes. That's it.
Yeah.
And I'd laugh at the wrong time. If we were getting a bollocking, I would just smile. I couldn't help it. I'm still like that, and I was twitching my eyes. I think I was rolling my eyes at the time like this, and I got told off for it. Don't roll your eyes. Obviously, I was like, no, miss, I've got Tourette's syndrome. No, don't roll your eyes. I was like, no, I can't help it. Don't roll. Yeah. Detention. Oh, cheers. Thanks. Cheers, miss. Love you too. Yeah. It was just so frustrating. I think my parents came into the school once to say, like, look, excuse me, but like, can you please stop giving my son detentions for, like, he's not swearing, he's not being aggressive, he's not done any, he's literally twitching. Like, if you're talking to him and maybe he will be a little bit cheeky, or if you're telling him not to tick, that probably gets on his nerves a little bit. Maybe that annoys him.
Yeah, and this is the awareness of it and the understanding. And I do think the biggest gift anybody has is when we start to acknowledge ourselves and what's important to us, because as we said earlier, we're able to communicate that. And finding that words to explain is not always possible for everyone, is it?
No, it really isn't. No.
So, Chris, have you got any last questions that you want to ask Josh today, or is that like the wrong thing to say, because you've normally got a list of them?
No, I obviously want, Josh did a very, 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 very good job with my video and what
Thanks,
I
Chris.
needed and so I would love for obviously other people to use his services, especially with the fact that, the passion and the reason behind what he wants to do. So I know, Josh, that in the meantime, whilst you're waiting for this work to come in and, you are actively like knocking on charities' doors, for example, as well, and corporate stores, but you might have a list of equipment that people might be able to help you buy so that you can get on. So even if people couldn't maybe pay you to do a documentary, but they could still help you in other ways. Can you just tell us a bit about that?
Absolutely. So I'm on the old famous platform TikTok at josh.westy, and that's a platform that I took to last year, and I was a bit lost, and I was like, am I doing the right thing? Like, I was sort of questioning my life decisions and career choices, and I put a video up and I was like, hey guys, I'm a bit of a lost man. Like, this is what I want to tell stories and make documentaries, and essentially tell stories that deserve to be told. And then that video went, I think I got like 70,000 views in it or something now, which is
wow.
I'm really happy with that. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And people started to follow me, and that's when I started getting people saying, Josh, can you tell my story? I've got a story. They started off I did a 4-part series on Zoom, and now obviously I film people in person. Like, obviously, Chris, you came and told me your story and spoke about all the amazing work you do, which I'd also love people to go and watch, because I think it was a really good piece of work that we produced together.
Yeah.
And people can like donate to my productions. They can like pay monthly all the money goes towards equipment. People can buy, I've got like an equipment list, people can buy equipment on there.
So where's that equipment list sit, Josh?
So it's on a website called Throne.
Okay.
It's like throne.com/Josh Westy, and people can buy like camera batteries, all that sort of stuff. It's not the cheapest equipment on there, but hey, some people, I was always against this sort of thing, like, no, I can't do that, I can't put that link up. But actually, it's been really helpful. People have bought me batteries and microphones and things because they like the work I do. And I'm like, do you know what? It's a really good way of crowdfunding. Well, Film Tutors always spoke about. They said in the TV and documentary world, crowdfunding is a really good way of building yourself up, making content that you like, and it's a really good way of raising money to make the productions that you want to make. So I've got lots of ways of people supporting me, and Peter as well. I'd really like to say, if people can support Peter, before you even look at my pages, please go support Peter, because I tell you what, he deserves it so much. He deserves a smile, and we're going to still work hard this year to push his documentary out and get him that smile. He's got so much love to give, and it's amazing how much love he's got when he hasn't had that throughout his life. It's amazing what you can give when you haven't got it. And I think a lot of people, when they haven't got something, they give it. I think that most people that are going to lend you a fiver or give you a fiver are people that probably are struggling financially themselves.
Absolutely.
Please go look at Peter's TikTok, Peter Woods.
Absolutely. And one thing I will say is, as I said earlier, for anyone watching or listening now, if you look underneath, you will be able to find these links, because we will put that in the written description about this episode. Excuse me. And one thing I will say, that's perfect, Josh, about love, because we're going to be sharing this in February, and February is very much known around love. And so by giving people love as well, we're passing it forward, which very much aligns with how we both operate as well.
Yeah, no, brilliant. I love that.
So we've come to a really lovely end, and so good to speak to you, and we will continue to speak to you, Josh, obviously. And I don't live too far from you, so I will be seeing you in the future.
I'd love to. Thank you so much for having me.
No, it's been an absolute pleasure, and I look forward to watching you on mainstream TV. But saying that, mainstream TV is changing.
Yeah, it really is. And
independent channels becoming, they're growing rapidly, which is great.
Yeah.
So for anyone who has any further questions, or anyone who would like us to cover any subjects, please email us at breakingthecycle2stepforward@gmail.com. And for today, we're going to say goodbye and look forward to speaking to you all in another episode. Okay, then. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Thank you, guys.
Now,
Bye, Josh.
Goodbye.